Hi, everybody. Just getting everybody admitted here into the master class. My name is Alex Beamer. I'm the director of band and orchestra here for West Music. I appreciate you all waiting around for a couple extra minutes. We were having some technical difficulties, but we figured it out. You know, I've done numerous of these master classes, and this is the first time we've had some difficulties. Of course, right? You know, everybody's waiting to hear Otis, and we had a slight delay, but I'm sure that you will all be fantastic or have a great time, and Otis and his wife will be fantastic. So, um, of course, I'm not going to delay this any further. I know that everybody's really kind of itching to get it underway. So we at West Music are ecstatic to have Dr. Otis Murphy here with us today, and we are thankful for Yamaha for helping to sponsor this masterclass today. So without further ado, I'll just kick it over to you, Otis.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Alex. It's really great. Happy holidays to you all. I'm wearing a snowflake tie, trying to get in the spirit. I'm Otis, and this is my wife, Haruko. And we want to just thank you for taking time to be here today. Just going to talk saxophone. But before we talk saxophone, my wife and I would just like to share a little tune with you. This is by a friend of ours. His name is Ryota Ishikawa, and it's a work called Blooming Ireland. And it's an abbreviated version of this piece, but we still hope you enjoy it. For time's sake, we've compressed it, so we hope you enjoy. everybody. So I just want to say, hope you enjoyed the little piece, and I'm going to say goodbye to my sweetie. Thank you. Mr. Beamer, I'm planning this class to just simply, I have an agenda, the 5 T's, but I want to also be sure to cover things that the class might want to address. I see that some people have, thank you for the kind words in the chat. I'm getting this technology, learning about it, and I appreciate it. Right out of the gates, are there some things you all might want to talk about?
Dr. Murphy?
Yes. Hello, Puji.
Hi, good to see you.
Great to see you as well.
Happy to see you.
Happy to see you, my friend. Long time.
Long time. I've been thinking about you and miss you so much. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you. I've missed seeing you. Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about, Puji?
Well, yes. I'm quite fascinating about how you I mean your sound is always fabulous, and I just wanted to know how you control the mouthpiece, how you control the saxophone to the highest level that you can, and what kind of technique you use for your vibrato. I mean, your vibrato, the vibrato you have is definitely unique. I couldn't find it anywhere else besides your playing. So
we each have our own sound. Thank you, Puji, for your kindness. Thank you. Sure. Now I'm gonna say this class might have some classical saxophonists and some jazz saxophonists. I am everybody. I love you all, and we're all playing the same instrument. We basically play it the same, although I am not. I mean, all I do is classical saxophone. So I hope my jazz friends can take some things from this. I have many wonderful jazz friends, from Tom Walsh and Greg Ward down the hall, Steve Wilson, Kenny Garrett, Branford. We have a lot. We're all in this together, and we all respect and love each other. Having said that, I want to get into some of these things about tone. As we develop our sounds, so the 5 T's, I sometimes call it the saxophonists' food groups, 5 food groups. They are tone, tuning, tonguing, technique, timing. And then I also add an extension, and I call it the PFMEs, and they are practice, focus, memorization, and expression. The PFME element was something I added later after I felt the 5 T's really cover the technical aspects of playing, but these other areas have to do with the mind of the performer, such as focus and memorization, and then expression is what we're really all about in the music, and of course practice techniques. So I could, this could be a 2-hour-long clinic if we wanted, but I'm going to keep it to like 45 minutes today. So tone. We all want to have a clear and beautiful tone, and it starts with the basics of posture. I think it's really important for us to stand erect, and there's in singing and voice, there's a term called the noble posture, and it's simply just standing a little more upright, lifting the upper body a little more upright. And then when it comes time to breathe, we have different ways of breathing, but I want to say we need to learn to get the air into the body well, and that involves making space. So we need to kind of imagine, I want you to imagine a jar, and like I have my daughter's water bottle here.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Murphy. I can see you over here.
Oh,
I can see.
You can see, can you see? Sis?
No, I don't see you at all.
Oh.
You're there. Just go ahead. Go ahead, Otis.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. All right. Sorry, Puji. I'll keep going for the class. This bottle, it's the same shape whether it has water in it or not. And that is what I want us to think about for our abdominal area, especially the lower abdomen. It's that it's like a jar, and it's set. And so think of inflating it and setting it, and then you're free to put air in it. And even as I use up my air when I'm playing, I'm still trying to keep that shape. So I sometimes say we inflate we inflate as we deflate. So I'm going to change something. I recently got this nice camera and it zooms up too much. I had it zoomed up just a little better. So we inflate as we are getting smaller. So always feel like you're pushing outwards. Like in Star Wars, I often say Star Wars, the garbage compactor scene. If any of you saw that, they're getting crushed, and so they're constantly trying to push the walls back out. And that's what I want to say, thinking about with our abdomens as we play. Continuing, think also once you enlarge this area down here, like I'm poking it out, but I'm still talking, and I'm moving it in and poking it out and moving it in, but I'm going to poke it out and leave it. And now I can just add air. It's just the air just comes in. It's not like I have to do all that. So if you just make space, the air just flows in very naturally. And we can get into different things about this, but the main thing is that when we play, inflate as you deflate. So if I play a note and just blow, I'm constantly trying to keep this enlarged shape, even though I'm going to run out of air. I could keep going, but I'm just holding that position, okay? So that's very important. The embouchure is an area that I want to talk about. My teacher, I have two teachers who profoundly influenced me. They are Eugene Rousseau and Johnny Formeau. Dr. Rousseau, in this case, he talked a lot about the role of the embouchure, and I often like to use his description. He said the job of the embouchure is to allow the reed to vibrate freely, but not too freely. Makes sense for all of us who play. We want it to respond, but we don't want it to be wild. We don't want it to be muffled either. And so when I'm thinking about how to set the embouchure, I think for all of us, think of a natural way of creating an embouchure. And so I sometimes say, think of the word food. So saying foo, foo. It puts the lower lip over the teeth, and it sets us as if we're playing the saxophone. And then when we think about the cushion on our reed, this is where I want to suggest we all can explore some things. For me, I think of two. I think of a bed. This is my reed, and I lie, like if this is I, and I lie on my bed. I am the reed. It's flat against flat. But also, I think of a hammock, and a hammock is a flat me or flat reed put against a curve. And I think of this as a soft and a harder cushion. And I use them for different purposes. For example, a soft cushion I might use for just a softer sound or an accompanimental sound. Versus a firm, harder, flat contact. I didn't change a thing. I just pushed harder into the reed from the bottom. So that's one of the things I wanted to say, is to think about this idea of a cushion and then a flat spot here as well. When it comes to voicing, I saw someone put a question about voicing. For me, I want to just get into, I have a really simple version about voicing that I describe, and that is simply this. I think of voicing as whistling position. So instead of adjusting so much in the back, I use a lot more in the front myself. So if I whistle, it's a little hard to do, my lips are dry, but you see my tongue is very active in the front. And I feel that anything I do right here at my reed, like move my tongue, woo, it really changes things. So I can make a vibrato that way. I'm not moving my jaw at all, just simply saying yo, 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 yo. I'm moving my tongue. Some people even use that technique in their performance. So that's one of the things that I wanted to discuss, is how to voice in that way. So I use it's like whistling to tune. So if a note is sharp, Mr. Beamer has kindly given me permission to share my screen, and I'm going to show a tuner on my screen with you all. I'm going to check my pitch. It's gone up a little bit. Okay, so Can you see that, Alex? Can you see what I just shared on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Great, okay. So I'll just play a high G. And so I'm only gonna move my tongue. I'm just moving the front of my tongue to be specific. And if I point the tip of my, or the front of my tongue down, watch what happens. When I point it up, it only moves a little bit when we go up, but that's how I steer my air personally. So that's one of the things. And then when we play any note on the saxophone, I teach my students that every single note has 3 positions or more, and they are very simple. It's a high, middle, and low. The middle spot is like doing nothing at all. When you just blow the note, it's there. High is when you shoot it higher for tuning, for example, or low is lower for tuning. And most of the notes on the saxophone do not play in tune, by the way. Now, to move to blend tone and tuning, I'm going to share my screen again and show a quick graph because I want to talk about how we approach tuning. When we are thinking about tuning our instruments, it's important to know that the saxophone has keys. It's a keyed instrument. And when I finger any given note, I get that note and all of the good that comes with it, and unfortunately the bad too. So if I say play a low, say I play a high C sharp on my Yamaha saxophone, it's one that is going to have a tendency to be sharp before I play it. And so what I need to do is I call it mapping. Remember I said memorization earlier? I said the PFMEs, memorization. Memorization also is, I call it mapping. It's like learning things ahead of time. You map it out and you remember it. So you memorize it, memorizing a map. And so I learn that that C sharp is high. So I get out in front of it and I adjust my whistling position to place it. And then that also is memorization. That's muscle memory as well. It's oral memory or audiation. It's imagining it in your head and hearing it, but it's also the muscles knowing what to do, and they repetitively or repeatedly can go to that spot. And so what you see in front of you is a tuning chart. It's one that one of my students made, and it was blank before. And this chart just shows my student's tuning before he made any adjustments or corrections. So it's how he played. He plays his saxophone and he alone. It's only his chart. And so as you can see, it's not perfectly in tune. Okay? So I wanted to just mention also, when you think about tuning, string players have 4 open strings. They are kind of the equivalent for us about the keys. We are set and locked when we finger a B. So string players tune very carefully on their open strings because they can't move around. It's just set there on the open strings. But when a string player plays, they're constantly tweaking their positions. So it's like having the B, but the B can be a little up here or a B can be a little down there based on what they're hearing around them. Their world is in what we call just intonation a little more. So it's based on relationships of notes, vertically, harmonically. And ours is not that as much because we have set fingerings. So that's why we have to memorize and map out the tuning tendencies of our instrument beforehand, before we go to play those specific notes. So for now, I want to talk about one final area in tone, and that is projection. When we play, one of the things you assuredly have noticed is that the saxophone has a big sound, and we can get a lot of projection. And I want to define, though, projection not pertaining to volume, but it's much more related to perception or how the listener receives the sound. In fact, that's how I would kind of define projection, is how the listener receives your sound or even perceives your sound. And there's some things I've played a little bit with some different settings. My daughter plays harp, so I played with harp, and I've played with band and orchestras in different settings. And projection is used differently. And I want to talk about ways you can focus the sound to throw it out more, so that once you're playing the big Glazunov concerto or Dahl concerto with band or orchestra, you're going to push that sound out there beautifully. So to start out, to get more projection in the sound, I think about, remember I talked about the bed versus the hammock, bed versus the hammock. So it's definitely a more hard or direct lower lip position up against that reed. It's the soloist sound, so it's more colorful. Another thing I've done is I sometimes take a tiny bit more mouthpiece in my mouth because I want the reed to vibrate more freely, okay? I want it to vibrate and I want to permit it to vibrate more freely. And even along those lines, when I really want to get loud, I might even thin my lower lip slightly to decrease the cushion. So remember, the purpose of the embouchure is to allow the reed to vibrate, but freely, but not too freely. So I might thin that cushion slightly. And then I might change my air. So in the English language, we have 5 vowel sounds, a, e, I, o, u. And if you add an H to all of them, ha, he, he, ho, hu, that simulates more how we play. And if I were to change the order based on the position in my mouth when I play, I'd say the most forward one would be E. So he, he, ha, hu, ho. So he, he, ha, hu, ho. And that's like my world there now, 5 vowel sounds. And the 3 in the middle, I, a, e, u, are kind of close. So he, ha, hu. So if I were to play he, ha, Dr. Nolan, I see you. I love that. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're here, Julia. Here's ha, he, hu. Could you hear 3 different sounds distinctly? I tried to exaggerate them a little bit so you can use that. But when you want more projection, notice I didn't say E and O. Well, that's when I combine those. So E and O makes like the word yo. Say yo. Just got a lot of energy. And so I want to play with an airstream that has more energy. So those are some things. And then, as I think about this idea about projection, I did want to say 2 final things, and they are you can adjust your position on a stage when you play. For example, if you're playing a concerto as a soloist and you have an ensemble behind you, the ensemble is inside the stage, kind of like a shell in there, and then you have the curtain. Feel free to put yourself a little outside of the curtain area. That alone can set your sound apart from the group. And then to get more sound out of the horn, I sometimes use venting. I call it venting. And venting is like, it's hot and stuffy in here. I need to open a window. So it lets me use the saxophone to enlarge the sound by opening some keys. For example, on a high A, I'm adding my G sharp key. Now that also brings a tuning up. So you have to know there's a side effect sometimes when you add or close keys, is they change the tuning. But they allow you to expand the sound more. So those are some things I wanted to say there. And then about vibrato, since Puji so kindly asked, I wanted to bring in, I have a little friend today. It's my metronome and my tuner. So I hope you can see this. So what I'm gonna do is play a drone and match it first. I hope this comes through well. Let's take a different note from F. Let's say this note. By the way, that's something you can just practice alone if you want to work on your sound. It's just turn on a machine and just play a note and just melt into the sound. And don't let it swivel and move around. It's actually really, at least for me, really hard. And so try that. It'll help you stabilize your sound. But I'm using this drone to help me check my vibrato. Vibrato is like the salt on your French fries. You don't buy the fries for the salt. You buy the fries for the fries, and you add the salt for the little enhancement. And so that's what I think of vibrato as. And so you want to try playing straight tone and then integrating it into that. Vibrato has 2 components. It has a vertical which many of us use a jaw vibrato, so we understand that. But it also has a horizontal element. I think of the horizontal as like an ambulance coming, and as it gets closer, because of the distance, its pitch changes. And so that's horizontal, how we receive that sound. To make a beautiful vibrato, we want it to spin. So that's horizontal and vertical together. Horizontal and vertical together. So try just playing by just trying to blend in. And you can practice this right here with me without having your horns. Just gently bite your lower lip, or grab, I'm not going to use the word bite, gently grab your lower lip and just blow, but feel yourself moving, but listen for no undulation in. So like this, I'm going to get really, my mic is right here. So you might be able to see me tremble moving here. But I don't hear or feel any change in air pressure. That's something you can do while you watch TV. You can do it. But you can do the same thing with vibrato, with a drone. Now for me, this is kind of personal how we talk about vibrato. I believe the most important part about kickstarting vibrato is to squeeze up. And it's like a conductor for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not down first. The ictus changes it's called the ictus. Ictus is that imaginary line. It immediately drops. So I think about going up first, and then I swim around the sound. I am a person, Johnny Formeau taught me very much to swim around the tone. And I respect that when I bend a note up, I can't go very far, but when I bend down, I can go way, way down easily. So I'm thinking of not just up and down, I'm thinking of rebounding from the bottom. So that helps me to feel like I'm establishing a constant floor for the vibrato. Now I'm picking a kind of bad note to use. C is a very flexible note. With the saxophone, I think of this as a little mini saxophone. I talk about it. Okay. Now up here, this part, this is the saxophone. It's like a cone, right? So up here, this saxophone, you see how narrow the tube is versus down here? It's very wide. So the tubing up here has the tone follows that. The sound of our short tube notes tends to be thin, and it's super flexible, which can be a problem. Okay? And then down here, these notes, these tend to be thick and heavy, and they're like inflexible down at the bottom, the long tube. And so we have to respect that element. And so that's why when I said I picked a middle C, it's incredibly, not the most stable note. But I often teach my students this, to take your little saxophone and think of making the top saxophone mimic the bottom saxophone. So the top end of the horn, you want it to have thicker sound and to not be so flexible. Also to not respond so fast, right? They speak so quickly. And the bottom of the horn, it's tubby and heavy and wide. We want to make it narrower and lighter. Now, this is a classical thing. So I'm trying to balance my instrument for me. Okay, so here, the C. You can hear when I'm over here, it's straight, and over here I'm trying to vibrate gently. So I'm trying to blend it in. So here's how it sounds without a drone on a more stable note. Okay? Now, you can change the contour, meaning the top and bottom, that shape, and you can use that. Remember I said projection is how we receive or perceive the sound. And so when you play louder, it's like a weightlifter lifting something heavy. This wonderful lady is lifting 250 pounds. She's not just going to stand there like it's nothing. She's going to tremble, or anybody, they're going to tremble. And so when you're playing with projection, I believe the vibrato can have more jaggedness, more like a sawtooth wave. But when you're playing in a more relaxed setting, you can have a gentler curve. So you can change your contour. And it can have something to do with volume, but it also might not have volume to do with volume. If you're in a small setting, you can play with a jagged vibrato, and it can sound like you're playing a lot louder than you are. So So that's one of the things. So I hope I answered some of that you mentioned, Puji, about vibrato and tone. And you're very kind. Thank you for your kind words, of course. I want to move on, and we also already talked some about tuning, and in that way. And let's jump to technique. I'm going to jump across tonguing and get into technique, because I think we need to learn to get around the horn very, very comfortably. Fluently is the word. It's like learning a new language to gain fluency. And I wanted to just say a few things. How we interact with the instrument matters. So when you play your saxophones, I'm going to move this for a second. How we interact matters. So when I'm going to move my fingers on my horn, I'm going to think about not opening them 100%, because then my fingers are flying off. But if you think about opening them less than 100, let's say even 80%, or 75 is a good number that 75%, you'll notice your fingers are a lot tighter to the instrument. You'll still open them 100%. And so that's going to increase efficiency. And when I want to also talk about how we get in the playing position, it really affects a lot. So we have a neck strap, so the saxophone is attached. And then I teach my students, we have 4 points of contact with our bodies. And that is the head here, the thumb, or left thumb, the right thumb. And so you have these points. And then what is the 4th one? Well, for me, it's my hip. I'm going to lower the camera so you can see a little better. All right, so when playing, it's right here. It's either the forearm or this area here. And you can, because otherwise the horn is swinging around. I can't play, but if I press here, or even just touch on my hip bone, I can move very fluently, and the instrument isn't flying around. So I want to really stress, it's not just hands, but it's also like a bone contact that I'm looking for. I think that's important. When you close the keys, if you want to play fast, think of closing to those tone holes, but when you release, the tone is emitted for the new note the moment you lift off. It's not like you lift off and you have to go all the way up and then it's F. It's the moment it lifts off, that's F. All of this is F. Okay? That's really important. And then when we're practicing for technique, to get into some more specific things, practice scales, arpeggios, and articulation patterns, of course. Spend time with note groupings. And to play musically, my students, we call it the tadpole. And so I'm going to show a few things. Sure, I just set this here. Sorry for the delay. I'll go a little slower. So you hear that? That's those are 8 notes, 8 divisions, but I'm thinking of it in as like a dance rhythm, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So instead of just 8 even notes, it lets me deal with strong and weak, strongs and weaks in plural, and then it also lets me think about my downbeat. This is the downbeat. None of these is the downbeat. And so I describe it as the tadpole. Tadpole is that it has a big head, smaller body, and a slim tail. So anytime you play a note group, whether it's 2 notes or more, it should have at least a head and a tail. And that tail helps us set back to the head. So shabba jibba, shabba jibba, shabba jibba, shabba jibba. Okay? So that's a really important thing I want to stress to practice. And then what you can do is you can start to play around with this by you don't have to start on the downbeat all the time with your scales. We do this too much. So for example, F sharp major, and just start playing. Now I'm going to play it with, I'm going to play it starting one note before the downbeat. See, it's displaced. Or two notes. 3. And so it lets me study the attack of the saxophone. Sorry, let me fix the camera. Lets me study the attack of the saxophone so that, because the nature of our instrument is that when we play a note, it wants to be da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, strong. But we need to figure out how to play pickup notes. And so I'm actually calling this, we call this the anacrustics. Like anacrusis means pickup note. So we call it the anacrustics. And then I want to finish with technique a little bit by talking about wide intervals. Arpeggios are a very important thing to explore because arpeggios let us cover a lot of territory in a small amount of time. So I'm covering a lot of notes in a small amount of time. So with voicing, the speed of changing the notes on the saxophone, is just my opinion. This is me. I'm not able to change my voicing position as quickly as I change from one note to another on the instrument, especially in leaps. So what I found is I describe it as the machine, the saxophone, it's always faster than the flesh. Or to say it another way, the flesh is never as fast as the machine, my students say, we say. Because when I finger, here I'll turn on the tuner. This is another kind of tuner. When I play second movement of Scaramouche, the D is very sharp. So I need to anticipate that, right? Because I know that it's going to be sharp, my mapping, memorization, and then I know I need to blow it down. And so I need to blow it down before I play it, though. So I should not play and fix it. I need to fix it when I arrive. And so you must adjust before you get there. And it's really hard to do, especially with leaps. But steps, it's a little easier. And I'm simply using that idea of my tongue in the front. I'm not moving the back so much. And it's an Otis thing, probably. But I found that when I open the back, the sound becomes this diffused. It's wide to me. And so I'm trying to mimic the sound of no adjustment, like if I played the note without adjusting, but playing it in tune. So. And I've learned through muscle memory and ear how to place the D to be in tune. So those are some things. Now, are there any, I'm just running my mouth. Are there some things you all want to talk about? If you have a few minutes left, I really want to address some things. And Alex, could you help me if I miss something?
Yeah. Julia, you have a question there for Otis. If you want to just jump in.
Nolan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, that's very sweet. Hello, Julia.
Can you touch on playing harmonics?
I can. Sure. I can. And Julia, I was going to ask Julia's question. Was that the question?
Well, Julia has a different question. And let's go to Julia first, and Jim, we can jump in with you right afterwards.
Sure, absolutely.
Hi, Otis. Nice to
Hi,
see
Julia.
you. Nice to hear you as always. So I was really pleased to see that you're using the TE tuner. It's my favorite toy. And but I'm also curious because before you used the TE tuner, you were using something else. And also when you were doing the technique, I would love to know how to set that up, because that's so much fun. And also what you're using right now with Scaramouche. And my cat is about to visit again. So
Absolutely. Yeah, she's talking technology. I'm happy to talk. Hello to your beautiful cat. Oh my goodness, it's a beautiful cat, Julia. Sure. On my students and I, over the course of this past 2 years, virtually, we adopted certain things because of the online Zoom classes and lessons, and I actually I actually required, for those students in my studio who had an iOS device, I kind of required certain apps. And it's just to standardize. Like, we could do technique class and we all had the same tuner, or we also had the same metronome. And anyone can lead then. Not always I have to have the metronome on and then they play, or figuring it out like that. So the Tonal Energy Tuner app is the one that she's talking about. It's very useful if you don't know it. It became famous. Harrison Clark, who's a saxophonist in the Navy Band in Washington, D.C., he was my undergraduate student. And he brought this to my attention when I first got a phone, because it was my understanding, I believe it was his band director who was one of the creators of this in Texas. And I think the band directors were using this quite a bit before it caught on. And it had to do with that smiley face. I think kids liked that a lot. But it's a great app. It has... it can play sounds, it can play all kinds of sounds, and you can insert the missing note. It's just really excellent. And then it has an analysis mode, and you can study your sound here, like through waveforms, while looking at the tuner. It's easy to record as well. And then finally, it has a metronome feature as well that you can use. Okay. So that's the best all-around tuner you can app as a musician, instrumentalist, in my opinion, you can get. Then I love this one. It's called iStrobosoft, like strobe. It's a strobe tuner, and it's super responsive, and that's why I like it. And I could use it here, and you could tell exactly how in tune or out of tune I am. It's very responsive. Then I have this one. It's called Tempo Advance, and it's great because you can add subdivisions easily and change accents. You can change the tempo quickly and easily. You can change different things. So it can do far more than I'm capable of using. And then the final app that my students and I use a lot is oh, sorry, you guys are seeing all the Chipotle app and everything. Sorry, I didn't set this up beforehand. Oh, it's here. It's called Pro Metronome because it has a pendulum feature. And so, remember we talked about the 5 T's? One of them is called timing. Timing, I think of rhythm initially, but timing refers to a lot of things. It refers to adjusting in Scaramouche so that your timing to play that middle D in tune is just right. It's not too late, not too early. Timing also refers to even when you start to blow, some notes don't want to speak. Some don't want to speak, they are late, and some are earlier. And to standardize, we have to learn to standardize the response on the instrument. So the fast notes, we learn to delay the response a little bit so we can place them, and the slow notes we need to enhance again so we can place them. So this, see, it has this pendulum. Okay. Now I do have this set up to a speaker, so it's not normally, the iPad is never this loud normally. So those are some very, like the 4 that my students and I use. Thank you, Julia. Hope that addressed that question. Thanks for asking. And then a gentleman had a question about overtones. Sure.
Yeah.
Overtones, they're very important to understand, and I can show you actually here, since you mentioned it. I can actually show you overtones, and we can talk about it though regarding, I think you're talking about producing the harmonics. But what we need to understand on the saxophone is that on any given note, we have a series of overtones. So if I play a low G, that purple, that's my fundamental. And all of these other notes, all these other green lines are harmonics. And so how do we use this? Well, my students and I, we play ping pong occasionally in person, but I mean with the saxophone, we play ping pong. And what I mean by that is I'll play a note, my student will play a note, and we'll just look at this. And we're trying to just diagnose one another, or it's like x-ray a little bit, x-ray vision, to learn about one another's sounds. But the one thing we all are looking for is we want it to be heavy on this side and to drop down and to be very little up here. That's our personal goal. And when we have a lot up here for classical sound, my students have found that if it's a breathy sound, oh, it's hard to do. See that down there? It's not showing a lot today, but sometimes it shows a lot more. But when I erase that, it's less then. So basically, we just want it to be weighted on the left side. Now, sir, I believe what you were talking about is producing harmonics. And yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Right on. We need to know that when we play a note, the one we hear is the one that the saxophone is weeding out to produce. But in any given note, it has a whole lot of notes in it. And that allows us to pull them out at will. And so we can play, and I'm just playing, fingering low B flat, and I'm choosing different notes above. Now, in teaching students to do this, I want to talk about, there is a way to do this to help people learn about moving the voice. And one of the things is, first we need to learn, I'm going to take water and I'm going to gargle. We need to learn this feeling of adjusting, and I feel like something tangible that I can feel and even choke on is very useful. So I'm going to take a little bit of water and gargle. And I'm just saying ah, a, e, o, u, and I choked a little bit. But I can feel the changes, and so I can talk until I'm blue in the face about it with a student. But once we get that water, all of a sudden, we're like feeling it. And it's my students, the success rate skyrockets then, those who are not used to that, because they can feel and match that feeling, especially with the different ha, he vowels, a, e, o, u. And the one we focus on to get the altissimo, for example, is the E. E. That's going to be more high harmonic based. But to get into the harmonics from the fundamental, what you can do is you can actually leak keys on the instrument. So I'm going to lower the camera. And so, for example, if I want to find high B flat, I might leave this key open. Or if I might even start with this key wide open. So I'm going to finger B flat with no octave key. But then I'm going to close everything except the next key down. So I'm going to close everything except my middle finger. And it's much easier to find. And then you close the finger down slowly and try to keep the note. And you can follow, you can do that with a lot of notes on the instrument just by trial and error. So by leaking, I'm creating a key leak. You've probably squeaked at some point. I'm creating a key leak, and it naturally makes the saxophone jump up a harmonic. It's like our octave key. It's a leak, essentially, here, and it makes the saxophone play higher. Okay? I hope that answered that question, sir.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Of course. Any other questions specifically?
Yeah, Otis, we have a question about as you played earlier, specifically your high G sounded very natural, where that note typically sounds sharp, and question I believe is like what are you doing to make the sound still sound natural while adjusting the pitch, right, that type of thing.
Sure. Thank you, Alex. Sure. I think about when we go up, I think down. And when we go down, I think up. It's kind of those who have Yamaha saxophones, especially like Selmer Mark 6, Selmer Series 2, especially the Series 2. Those instruments are designed in a certain way. And I talked to the Yamaha designers about this at some point because I was trying to understand why is my high register kind of like high, or why they don't fix it to be like perfectly in tune, which they can. And he said it this way. It has to do with this idea here about the little saxophone and it's narrow. As we play high, the tone of the saxophone, it's like a tree. It's not a full tree. Like the girth of the tree, the tone, it gets smaller as we go higher. And so by going high, when we go high, we have to kind of adjust and enlarge or spread it out some. So that's the idea of what I'm doing a little bit is when I play to the high register, I'm not just doing nothing and just blowing there. I'm actually blowing almost downwards as I go upwards. And the same on the bottom, because the saxophone tuning tends to want to go flat down there. I'm trying to blow those notes higher. So as you see, I'm not afraid about talking about tuning and pulling up a tuner and showing you because I believe it's objective. So if I play E harmonic minor, now I'm adjusting, but if I don't, it's at 16 cents high. So I'm thinking down as I go up. Otherwise, the sound also becomes rather shrill. Now, there are times for a very direct sound, but I want to kind of control it. If you've ever been in band with clarinets and the band director says to the clarinets when they are going high, he or she might say, less volume. Less volume. So that's the feeling too of a little bit holding back, but I'm targeting lower as I go. And use the octave as your reference, by the way. Think of the lower note as your model and then play above that. Or even I can show an exercise with the tuner here. For example, I'll pick a G. I'm playing an E on the saxophone. So I'm going to give myself the root, and then I'm going to give myself the fifth. Sorry. Okay? And so that's 2 notes it's giving me. And I'm just going to match those notes across the range. Try. So. If I have a little flub, I don't just stop and say, oh, it's okay. It's not okay. I need to go back and fix it. And what went wrong? And constantly ask yourself, what is it that I didn't do there and then when you go back and fix it, what did you do that helped it? So I hope that helps a little bit with altissimo. Use the ear, use a model. I'm using a clarinet sound here just because it's very, it's not a very strong direction in any way. A clarinet to me has a pretty, not want to say the word generic, but it has a very clear, direct sound though. It's a very pure sound to me. And so that's why but you could pick all kinds of instruments on this app. So, okay, hope that helped. Other questions you have today that you want to talk about? No?
Yeah, any other questions?
Because I want to close with one final topic of my choosing. That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So the final topic I'd like to cover is the one that's related to the PFMEs, and I wanted to talk about practicing because I'm running my mouth about different techniques and little ideas about how we can play the horn, but the bottom line is that you have to get in the trenches and get your feet, get boots on the ground and figure it out too, just like I'm trying to do it. I want to encourage you when you practice to use as many senses as you can. And we have 5 senses, hearing, sight, touch, smell, taste. And the one that I don't want to get into taste, but the other 4 I think are very useful. Touch, you can imagine when you touch the keys. Sight, let me come back to sight in a second. Hearing, we hear it, and then well, taste actually fits, and smell. Maybe smell we're not going to talk about, but taste relates to the feeling of that reed in your mouth. Like we all know the taste of a brand new reed. You know that. Shake your heads. You all know the taste of a brand new reed. It's got this almost sweetness. I hate to say that. Not like that sounds weird, but it's got a different flavor than one you've been playing for a little while. But that feeling of the touch, like if you articulate and you touch the reed and pull away from it, there's I can feel it on my tongue afterwards. There's like a little vibration or a sizzle on my tongue. I can feel it. Like I can still feel my tongue after touching, like that. I can still feel that. So that's important. But the sense that I think a lot of us don't use is sight. And sight is not reading the notes on the page. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about using sight when you're playing the horn. And I'm going to show one idea. So when playing, I'm going to shrink down because I want you to see both. I want to encourage you, when you practice the next time, to get in your playing position and look right around the octave, the neck screw area on your horn. And what you'll see, and adjust your vision. You don't have to like hurt yourself craning down, but just look in this area in front of you. And what I can get from that is I can easily see my left hand, but I can also see my right hand moving in my peripheral vision. And so one of the things that I feel we miss as wind players, like flute even, their hands are over here. They don't see what they're doing. Clarinet, a little more because it's in front, but it's way down. Saxophone, we really don't see what our right hand is doing. And so I want to encourage you to practice looking in this area, and it's like you can memorize what the fingers are doing. You can explore how high the fingers move, how smoothly, how quickly. There's a lot we can learn. And then I want to also say, when playing wide intervals on the saxophone, keep in mind it's narrow here and wide here. So when we have our left hand and right hands, left hand, this is my left, depending on your camera orient. This is my left and this is my right. See, the right is much bigger. But in theory, if this is the tone holes, these are the tone holes, they're supposed to hit at the same time. But if this top hand is going to hit before, if I move them at the same time, it's going to always hit ahead of the left hand. So think of closing your horn from the bottom up. See that? I'm moving the right hand before. That's really important. And then about intervals, I have something that I kind of want to really share. And that is, an interval is based on two notes, okay? When I say interval in singular, it's just two notes that are either higher or lower than one another, okay? The first note for me, whether I'm going up or down, the first note, if they're like this is the first note and this is the second note, I teach my students, let's say this is a middle E and this is a low A. See the gap? I teach my students to think of playing the first of the two notes longer. See my thumb? Increasing its size. See, they're a little closer than here. And then timing. You can adjust the timing of the second note to be a little earlier. And look what happens, they lock. So if I play E to A, and keep in mind also, the octave key on the saxophone has a job. The job of my octave key it's like a single-minded purpose the octave key has. When I press it, it goes up. But when I release it, it does not necessarily come down. So, for example, if I play a G, I can bounce easily back and forth. But here's what's going on. When I go up, it stays easily, and then I drop it down. But if I reverse that, if I try to stay down, I have to distort. I rest my case. The job of the octave key is to take me up. I come down. So when I'm playing wide intervals, also, you can release the octave key a little bit early. And your horn has it even built in. Right here, if you can see this little bit of play, there's a little bit of play. You probably can't see it. I have a little on this neck. It's not a lot. It's a little bit, but it wiggles ever so slightly. I could probably have more. And the idea is that when we are releasing the thumb, it no longer grabs here before we complete the swing. So you're actually closing either octave key. You're closing it a little early, so it helps us to come down. And so you can release a little earlier. And who brings us down? You bring yourself down. So E to A. I'm exaggerating, but I'm releasing way early. I'm playing in fifths, and I'm just thinking about very lightly touching, but really rebounding from the octave key to get off of it, and I'm coming down. Okay? So that's one of the things with sight. Think about, you can watch your fingers and learn by sight what you're doing. And that's one of the things we miss as instrumentalists. Pianists have that at their disposal. Even strings have it at their disposal, but we don't. Try to add that dimension of the senses. And then my very, very final comment I want to add is that these PFMEs, I haven't talked about the expression one. And I think we need to learn to play expressively, to use vibrato, to use rubato, which is flexibility within the beat, to really study how we approach expression in music. And if you're a student, really, really invest in your teacher. You will be that teacher's student for the rest of your life, okay, in my opinion. Like Dr. Rousseau, Mr. Formeau, I'm very, very, very close. He's like my uncle. Johnny Formeau is like my uncle. I can call him at 24/7. He's there for me. And he will always be this part of my life. But I'm no longer formally his student. But so what I'm saying is the formal relationship you have, teacher to student, is finite. Get all you can that your teacher is pouring in you now. And don't miss this opportunity, because very soon you'll be spreading your wings flying, and you'll be figuring it out on your own, and you'll quickly find your own voice. Don't worry, you'll have the rest of your life to find and keep your own voice. So those are some things I wanted to say today.
Dr. Murphy, that was fantastic. Really, we didn't have a ton of time to chat prior to this time, but I'm a percussionist, so I'm not in the saxophone realm, and boy, did I learn a ton of things today. It's been a real pleasure having you. We really appreciate having you on from West Music. Thank you to Yamaha again for helping us have you here today. Just a quick note for everyone: we did record the session. So we will be getting it out for you all to review, because you're going to want to go back and study a couple of these things. Definitely that was mentioned today. So we'll get that all out in an email. If you have any questions, for us or anything like that, you can always reach out to me. I can, get those questions to Dr. Murphy for you. But thank you again, everyone. It has been fantastic. And again, Dr. Murphy, thank you today.
Thank you, Mr. Beamer. And anybody, if you need me, send me an email. Professor Nolan, thank you for being here. And Jim Willoughby, oh my goodness, Jim Willoughby was my first saxophone teacher. Oh my, Mr.
Jim
Willoughby
was the one who was asking the questions.
Mr. Willoughby, it is awesome. Oh my goodness. You guys can you highlight him for a moment?
Sure.
Jim Willoughby, I'm from a town in Georgia, Milledgeville, Georgia, and Mr. Willoughby, when I was in high school, kindly took me on as his student, and I knew absolutely nothing. He put me on a mouthpiece. I had a stock mouthpiece. He got me a Meyer 5. I still remember, as a mouthpiece. He's a doubler, and he's a versatile musician, and I remember it rocked my world. And he set me on a course for what I'm doing today, and I'm still in touch with.
You are wonderful. That really makes me feel so good. Thank you.
Vivid memories of you, Jim Willoughby. I just want to say I love you, sir, and thank you.
Love you too.
For all you've done. So thank you.
Thank
Best
you.
to family.
Thank
And
you.
to all
Ray.
of you, thank you for being here. I wish you all a happy holiday in this Christmas spirit. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Bye bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye bye. Bye, Mr.
Bye-bye.
Willoughby. Bye, Alex. Bye, Julia. Bye, everybody.